Sasha. So I wanted to take the time to create a video and explain the celebration that is the Basler Fasnacht. As of December 2017, UNESCO recognized it as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. So I thought it would be a great time, in light of this fact, to make a video about the Fasnacht. And I have explained it to friends about what this festival is all about, but it is difficult to really understand because there's not really anything to compare it to. The closest thing to compare it to is the Mardi Gras festival that happens, but still it's very different in the way it looks and the activities and whatnot. I thought I would make this video to give a little more of an explanation and then also insert clips from this year's Fasnacht. So what is my association with Fasnacht? Well, it all stems from my dad. My dad is Swiss and comes from a city named Basel, which is actually where the Swiss, French, and German border meet. So he and my uncle have been taking part in this festival for years, ever since they were little boys, and have been doing it up to now and will probably keep doing it until they physically can't anymore. So ever since I was born, the culture and traditions have been instilled in me from that side of my family. Before I get into my personal experience, I want to give a little background and what the Fasnacht is all about and why it's so unique. The origins are somewhat unclear, with the earliest record being approximately 1376. So essentially the Fasnacht is a huge carnival taking place in multiple other cities in Switzerland, but the biggest and most impressive one is in Basel. So it's either February or March. The one in Basel actually occurs a week later than all the other ones, on the Monday following Ash Wednesday. So now one of the interesting facts about the carnival is that it starts on a Monday at 4 o'clock in the morning. No one seems to know why. My dad doesn't know why. I asked other people from Basel if they knew, and no one really knows. I guess it's just a fact and people just go with it. No one really questions it. But yeah, it starts at 4 a.m. and goes on for 72 hours, aka 3 days later, and ends Thursday at 4 a.m. It's basically 3 days of partying. The bars and restaurants are full the whole time. The streets are closed within the city, so no trams are allowed to go through it. It only stops in the outskirts. And there's groups of drummers and piccolo players that walk throughout the city in costumes. There's floats, there's lanterns, there's rappli, which is confetti, and there's confetti everywhere. And I mean like everywhere, but I'll get to that later. Back to the whole 4 a.m. start. This actually has a name, and that is called the Morgenstreich. So you wake up before 4 a.m., get dressed all warm because there's no sun, there's no warmth, so it's still cold outside. And then you walk to the tram to take you to the outskirts of the city. And it's an interesting sight because there's people who are dressed in their costume who are part of the drummers or piccolo groups. And then there's just the spectators like me, who everyone is kind of just standing there in the tram or sitting down like, ugh, why are we up at this ungodly hour? At least that's what I was thinking. 4 a.m. Weird time, but that's what it is. So you get to the city and the people are setting up with their drums or their lanterns. The spectators are towards the side of the buildings. And then once it gets close to 4 a.m., it starts to get a little quieter. People are saying, okay, preparing, getting ready. And then right when the clock strikes 4, the lights of the city all turn off, and then the Morgenstreich begins, and everyone starts playing the same song on their drums and on their piccolos. It's 2:30 in the morning, we all just woke up, And now it's time to walk over to the city to do Morgensteig at 4 a.m. and start Fasnacht 2018. It's gonna be so cold, but at least it's dry, there's no rain, there's no snow, so that's all you can really ask for. All right, here we go. And the city is only lit up by the lanterns that people are holding or the lanterns on top of their head. So they march around the city and people are watching and going to the bars. And it's funny because when you really think about it, wow, it is so early in the morning, but people are already drinking. At that point, you think, oh, it's 5 a.m. somewhere. You know, with the Fasnacht, everything goes, and there's no really sense of time, because it's pretty much one time. The themes of costumes and lanterns are often very satirical. So it's a time where people can be creative and express their thoughts on certain topics that are happening in Switzerland and also around the world. And it's a chance to bring light to people, politicians, pop culture, anything really. And there were definitely some funny ones, and some having to do with politics in the US. So it's definitely funny. Now another way that satire is expressed is through the Schnitzel Bunk. And this happens in bars or restaurants where people come dressed in costumes and are usually accompanied by some sort of instrument, and they perform short verses of poems and rhymes with humorous content. So it's entertaining and does require a lot of work having to come up with those lyrics with the poems, and there's always a comedic twist at the end. So if it doesn't make sense, at the end usually it gets a big laugh out of the people. So kudos to those who write them.
Sich unbedenklich und gar gesund, haben mich uns sagen. Und beim Zürcher ist der Hals grösser Hirn im Magen.
During the day, the Fasnacht is in full swing, and now the big floats are parading throughout the city with unique themes and messages, as I said before. And on those floats are people dressed in costume, and they're called vakis. And their costumes represent the vegetable growers. So they throw out candy, flowers, oranges, bananas, and other fun treats, which is all fine for me. But they also have a naughty side. Their weapon of choice is confetti. Growing up, I just remember that I never liked them. I was scared of them, and they were awful. But that's just part of the carnival, and I think it's been getting worse and worse because at first it's, oh, just throw, confetti onto people as they walk by or from the floats. Now you're just being chased down by the Vakis. You think you're safe, but then out of nowhere they come right behind you and they stuff your jackets with confetti, and your hair is full of confetti, and they always seek out people with long hair. Ugh. And you're just digging it out of your hair and your clothes for just ever. You just find it in your pockets. And I know, like, if I put on my winter jacket, I know I'm gonna find some in my pockets. And they're covered with their masks, so no one knows who they are, and they can just do whatever they want because no one recognizes who they are.
Schöne Fasnacht! Oh, merci.
Besides drummers and piccolo players, there's also something called Guckemusik. And these are big groups of marching brass bands that play a lot of well-known pop songs, and sometimes they intentionally play slightly off-key just for fun. And a lot of people like to dance to it. Sometimes the groups stop and play spontaneously for a little mini street concert. So it's a lot of fun, it's loud and funny for spectators to watch. Now I want to showcase my dad. So as I said, my dad has been drumming ever since he was a little boy and has taken part in the Fasnacht pretty much every year since then. And he always tells me stories of his drumming career and how he would spend countless hours preparing for concerts throughout the year and the Fasnacht when it came up. And he was also given the prestigious position of being a drummer in the Swiss military. So as a child, I remember always being amazed by his drumming and watched him practice a couple months before we headed to Switzerland. And I was always excited to have him come in for show and tell during elementary school and show my fellow classmates about his drumming abilities. And one story that he always likes to bring up is I would introduce him to my classmates and my friends like, "This is my dad, he's a drummer." And he always laughs about that because, at the time, I didn't know what he did for work. All I knew was that he was playing on his drum, and I thought that was the coolest thing, so that's obviously what he did, right? The group that my dad continues to drum with is called the Pulsklopfer. And their costume is kind of like a pirate of sorts, and everyone in the group is professionally trained. So it's funny because this year I asked him, do you watch other groups when they march by and kind of judge their playing? And he says, yeah, kind of, because there's people that kind of just hit the drum, and then his group, it's very finesse, it's very neat, everyone plays at the same time, there's no one that's kind of slightly off. And usually, if you know someone that's playing in a group, you follow behind them as they march throughout the city. And it's really cool when we're kind of in small alleys because the echo is very prominent. So when they're playing, it's just like huge booms that you hear. And it's really, really fun to listen to and just to hear them play in complete unison as if it's only one person playing. time that I went to the Fasnacht was actually when I was just a little baby. I don't recall it at all. I could barely walk, but I always just see pictures of me as a little chub and my grandma making me a costume to wear for the festival. Eventually, as I grew up, I understood a little bit more and more and appreciated it more. So being able to go this year from February 19th to the 21st was really special, and I was able to experience it the whole 3 days. And I learn new things every time I go. It's something that I hope I can continue to go to if I'm able to in the future with my family and support my dad and my uncle. I hope that this video was informative and kind of gave a glimpse on what the Fasnacht is all about and why it is so unique. If you ever find yourself in Basel, specifically around February or March, make sure you check when the Fasnacht is that year and stop by and experience the Fasnacht in all its glory and all its weirdness. Thanks for watching. Bye!
Vamos!